Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Nordic Football Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss. I'm with Jonathan Fadugba. And Jonathan, it's been a couple of weeks. How are you doing, my old friend?
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Yes, doing well. Ticking along. We've had a few weeks, obviously, because we had the international break and many other things going on. But we did have an interview last week with Kevin Nicol, exclusive interview. We also did a Patreon, never to be seen again because the audio disappeared. So I wasn't on that Patreon weekend preview show, unfortunately, although I did record it, Steve. I did put the time and effort in, as you know. But we had a few technical issues in the last few weeks. But hopefully the listeners enjoyed the Kevin Nicol interview. Mjøndalen interim head coach. I thought he was a fantastic guy to speak to and listen to. Seems like an up and coming coach. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And I'm doing well. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, thank you, Jonathan. I think this is like our fourth different format to try and record something in. So hopefully this one actually comes across all right. But are you ready for an absolutely kind of crazy period of football and a weird period of football coming up in the next 2 or 3 months?
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? We got the end of the season in Sweden and Norway coming. We're not too far away now in the home straight, and then it's sort of straight into the World Cup, isn't it? Of course, I haven't really, to be honest, paid attention to the World Cup yet, but it is quickly on the horizon. Less than 50 days to go. So it is that sort of getting to that period of the year where you start to sort of look at it, and it's going to be new for all of us, isn't it? There's no sort of summer calendars. It's going to be winter nights. But listen, it's a World Cup, and I'm looking forward to it. But before then, we got a lot to get through in our leagues, haven't we?
Yeah, it's like I'm meant to be doing some World Cup content, and I've done no research into it at all, really. So I need to buckle down. But yeah, we've got a really hectic period to finish the season off in Norway and Sweden. For Norway, it's going to be a bit unusual, of course, because normally the league would finish probably the second week in December. So an earlier finish for Norway this year. There's only 6 games left now, but plenty to sort out. We are going to start off with Norway. Looks like Molde are going to win the title. Plenty to talk about in the relegation battle, the hunt for medals, and the times are hotting up here.
Well, the first thing to say is, there's a big game in Europe this week, isn't there? I mean, are we going to talk about that first, or do you want to talk about that a bit later?
Do you know, that's a very good point. I'd almost got too excited about the league there. I suppose, yes, European matches. We'd better talk about them. They're certainly involving the 2 Norwegian teams. We've got Molde against Shamrock Rovers, and then Bodø Glimt travel to London. Small case of Arsenal away. So, I'm looking forward to, certainly the Arsenal game. Less so against Shamrock Rovers, but it's going to be tasty.
Arsenal fans who might be tuning into this, listening and trying to sort of get a sense of Glimt. I mean, we've talked about them. I feel like we talked about them more than anyone else on this pod in the last maybe 2 years or so. But for any fans who don't know them, let me put it like this: Are they another Östersund in terms of like went to the Emirates and beat them? Is that this week? How are you looking at the game that's coming up this week?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a chance of that, but I can tell you now, Arsenal fans couldn't give a shit about Bodø Glimt. They're not thinking about this match, Jonathan. All they're thinking about is their victory in the North London derby and thinking about Liverpool in the Premier League. So Arsenal, the match doesn't really matter to Arsenal much at all. At all. It's a huge game for Bodø Glimt, though. It's massive for them, and Arsenal we know have got a huge squad depth, and when you can rely on studs like Eddie Nketiah to come into the side and score goals at this sort of level in Europe, then I think even Tierney and Tomiyasu didn't start in the North London derby, so I'd expect them to get minutes. It will still be a very strong Arsenal team, and I'd expect Arsenal to win the first match here in London. But the reverse fixture is a completely different matter entirely. But Bodø Glimt are going to come here. They'll have a go. They are very well coached. That's a big similarity to Östersund. They had Graham Potter, obviously, there in the day. And if Arsenal are not careful, then, Kjetil Knutsen could maybe teach them a couple of lessons, potentially. So I think whoever's in that starting 11 for Arsenal, they've got to be up for it. And they will be, because, there's guys fighting for their place as well. And there's plenty of quality on show. But this is not just going to be a complete walk in the park. I mean, you always think, they'll think, Norwegian opposition, we should absolutely smash them to pieces. They did that against Molde 2 or 3 years ago, no problem. So they might think it'll be the same again. But with Bodø Glimt, ignore them and underestimate them at your peril, as Roma, Celtic, and several others have found out. So it'd be a good game of football, I think. And, obviously a huge game for Norwegian football, Bodø Glimt, less so for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know the exact team news, but I imagine that it's going to be, Arsenal probably rest some of their key players, I imagine. Is there a risk that they might take them be a bit complacent in this game? And in terms of the group, just for those who might not have the group table in front of them, just give us a bit of assessment of how important is this game in terms of the group itself.
There's a very unique group because the match between Arsenal and PSV was postponed, of course. So they've only played one match each, and there's a massive risk that they could get complacent. They're just coming off a high of beating their biggest rivals and the top of the Premier League, and they've got a huge game to look forward to against Liverpool. So there's no way, I don't think they're even thinking about Bodø Glimt this week. Arsenal will qualify from this group, no problem at all. Even they can even afford to drop points in a couple of games, and it's not an issue. So they could be complacency. It's just what is interesting is the players that come into the team. You call them the second string, the reserves, or whatever, but it's actually quite a high-class overall squad now for Arsenal. So I think the players will be hungry. Like Eddie Nketiah is going to want to come in and fill his boots, things like that. So I don't think there'll be complacency in that sort of way, but certainly there might be some heads and minds elsewhere. Maybe the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, and in terms of Glimt themselves, they're very excited about this game. They've described it as one of, if not the biggest game in their history. They apparently 3,000 Glimt supporters are travelling to the English capital for the match. And in fact, if you run through, as they do on the club website, the games that they've played, they've played a lot of big clubs, as you mentioned there. It says in the past year, Glimt has beaten Roma twice, Celtic twice, AZ Alkmaar, Dinamo Zagreb, to name just a few names, and has also secured an important point away from home against PSV. So, Glimt really are on the up, aren't they? But obviously, Arsenal, top of the Premier League at this moment in time. You say that they're more interested in the North London derby. To be honest, I think a lot of their fans were more interested in Manchester United losing 6-3 from the amount of text messages I got from Arsenal fans who were certainly coming out of the woodwork.
There's a lot, isn't there? There's a lot of Arsenal fans out there at the minute who are shouting out. So,
a lot of people remembered who I am of the Arsenal persuasion. People I'd not heard from for years, suddenly 4-0 down, getting in contact. So the giddiness is certainly back. But let's see, what's your prediction for this game?
My prediction for this game is Arsenal to win by 3-2. I think there'll be quite a lot of goals in the match. And, it's interesting you say 3,000 fans are coming over. Now, I've just actually looked at the population of Bodø in 2020 was 52,357. So that's nearly, 7.5% of the population of the city is coming over to London. So
and Arsenal Stadium actually holds 60,000, so they could fit the whole population of Glimt.
They'll be louder than the Arsenal fans, I'll say that.
Yeah,
they'll definitely be louder.
They've been pretty lively lately, in fairness. But yeah, that means you could fit the whole population of Bodø inside the Emirates, which is crazy. But there you go, there's the prediction. Let's move on. Of course, I think it will be on BT Sport and elsewhere. Yeah. But just coming, recapping back to Norway. Glimt did have a big result away to Lillestrøm on Saturday.
They did, and I wasn't sure which way this game was going to go, Jonathan, I must say. 4-1 win for Bodø Glimt. They took an early lead through Ulrik Saltnes, but Ibrahimaj equalised pretty quickly for LSK. Second half, though, Glimt were just brilliant. It was more like the Bodø Glimt of old that we've come to love, and they got an early goal, which shouldn't have been a goal. Runar Espejord was definitely offside. If there was VAR in this league, that goal would not have counted. There's been a few of those recently, I'm afraid. Some shocking, not refereeing as such, but linesmen have been blind. And this was one of those. But there's no doubt they were the far better team in the second half, and they should have certainly added to that advantage. And eventually they did. Hugo Vettelsson scored a great goal off the bench, 87th minute. Of course, you can't keep Amahl Pellegrino out of the goals, can you either? He scored in injury time. And that was a very important win for Bodø Glimt. It moves them back up to second place in the table. They have got obviously a brutal run of games coming up with, Arsenal, PSV, and, Zurich as well. They've got 4 European matches remaining. They've got to fit those in. And they need as many points as they can get hold of at the moment, because they will, I think, drop a few naturally due to tiredness and fatigue. So crucial win. Really could be a killer loss for Lillestrøm. There's a massive risk they could finish down as low as 5th now, which I think after the start they had to the season would be a real blow. And I mean, we've kind of seen this coming, haven't we? Not a mile away, but midway through the season, always the question was, can Lillestrøm hold on, keep going? And the ultimate answer at the moment is no. They desperately need to rebound now to Lillestrøm.
How bad has the loss of Aiko Adams been in that? Is he back playing now, or what's one of our famous Y Scout blog subjects? Has that been the big difference?
I think it has, yeah. I mean, he got injured, of course, in a European match. I can't remember exactly who it was against. It might have been Royal Antwerp, but I'm not 100% sure about that one. Yeah, I mean, he's now back. He came off on the bench. He was on the bench in that game, but he only was given 8 minutes of action. So he's missed, I'm just counting now on my spreadsheet, 7 Eliteserien matches he missed. And obviously that was a big blow for them, because he'd been in fantastic form. And, when you're taking someone like that out of the team, it's going to make a big difference. It forced them to re-sign Thomas Lene Olsen, who doesn't look quite sharp even now after starting 4 straight games. Holmberg Frid Johnson, I think, can be very hit and miss striker, and he's been relegated to the bench recently. Now they've got 3 target men strikers in the squad who are fit and ready. Akor Adams, Lene Olsen and Frid Johnson. I don't know who's going to start. I think the manager needs to look at putting 2 of them up front together, and that might give them more weapons. But yeah, I think ultimately that was a massive factor, no doubt about it. And also the 2 defensive injuries recently to Tom Pettersson and Eskil Edder have not helped.
Yeah, so obviously, as you mentioned there, Lillestrøm struggling without the main man Adams, who had such a fantastic start to the season, and they're now down in 4th with 6 games to go, 44 points, joint with Rosenborg, but just lower goal difference, both on 44 points. We've then got Glimt in 2nd on 45 points. But Steve, as you mentioned just at the top of the show there, but we haven't quite talked about it in detail yet, 15 points clear now with only 18 points available remaining. It's Molde. Sensational form they've been in, and they just need one more win to wrap up the title. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that. Maybe one win and a draw would do it. But with goal difference, it's looking like might already be done and dusted. I mean, they've been in sensational form, haven't they, lately? Haven't lost since May.
Yeah, I think it's 17 wins out of 19 or something like that. It's a ridiculous run. They've had 11 straight wins, I know that much. And I think 4 more official points and they will win the title. It could be won this Saturday if other results go their way and they beat HamKam. And, I actually think I've got to give them some credit, and I'm sure we'll give them plenty of credit over the next few shows before the end of the season. And, perhaps they're a bit underrated, really, the job that Erling Moe's done here. I've said before, he's a great manager. And, changing that tactical setup this season has paid massive dividends. And now they can really focus on the European run. They've had a disappointing start to the group stage in, losing to Djurgården, only drawing against Ghent. And now they've got a double header against Irish side Shamrock Rovers, who are top of the Irish Premier League right now. And the match on Thursday, first leg, is going to be in Norway. David Datro Fofana is suspended after he got sent off in Sweden. And, it's good. I think it's the 2 fixtures that Molde will be targeting 100%. They will expect and hope to get 6 points against the Irish outfit. No disrespect, but I think if you want to qualify from this group, you've got to be taking, a bare minimum of 4 points off Shamrock Rovers. Realistically, they probably need 6 now, considering the start to the group stage that they had. So, it's good news for them that they're 15 points clear. They're not hanging on to like an invincible season or something. Yes, they've got a nice unbeaten run, but I think they would probably willingly sacrifice a couple of losses before the end of the season if it meant they qualify from their Conference League group. So, I'm going to say congratulations to Molde now. They're not win the title from here, are they? But it's been a magnificent season for them.
Yeah, we do have a question actually from Flying Dutchman, a regular listener to the pod, at Jan as I stand. And he asked, any wild predictions for the last stretch of games? Just wondered, is one of your wild predictions maybe Molde to lose every match and blow the title? Or
shall I give you two wild predictions? Kristiansund to survive and Viking to plummet down to something like 12th.
Well, Kristiansund to survive. I mean, I remember you saying they're done and dusted, so that would be sensational. They really are climbing out of it. It's been amazing. Viking to fall to 12th. Well, they're currently 7th, 33 points. They're 5 points away from 12th. So you're saying that they're going to lose at least 3 games. What's going on with Viking then? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I wasn't really prepared to talk about Viking on this show, and I've kind of put it on myself, haven't I?
Yeah, you talked yourself into it, right?
There's not really much to say about them. It's like they had a great first half of the season. Seemed to lose key players through either injury or transfers. Berisha was obviously a big departure, but they haven't replaced Veton Berisha, Jonathan, which is kind of a madness. I don't know whether they just wanted to try a few players out, but like my Traore isn't really good enough as a starter. The lad, Daniel Carlsbeck, has been given minutes, 19-year-old, but I don't think he's really good enough. Trippic hasn't quite been the same since his mid-season injury. And, the defence has been conceding goals left, right and centre. I just think, the 33 points, that's enough to survive. There's always a team that just sinks like a ship, like the Titanic going down, isn't there? Every league, teams lose position. And I think them or Strømsgodset are the prime candidates to drop to like sort of 11th and 12th because they're kind of safe, not much incentive, and other teams below them are fighting much harder and having a lot more momentum. So I think, kind of the sensational part of this prediction is that sort of Viking were threatening the top 5 for a lot of the season. For them to finish as low as, say, 12th would be ridiculous.
Yeah, and just in terms of, let's just, while we're on the subject of Kristiansund, let's go into it now with them. They really do seem to have sort of turned it around. I remember at one point in the season they had single digits for quite a long time, but they've now, they won 3 on a row in September, and they've got a 4-4 draw against Rosenborg in their latest game. That's what has gone on in this Rosenborg game. 90th minute own goal equaliser to get them a point.
I know it was. I was actually watching this game in a bath, Jonathan. I've not had so much fun in a bath since, I was probably watching some Marseille game or whatever. But, I couldn't believe what I was seeing in this game. Kristiansund went 3-1 up at half-time, and they played a fantastic first half. They lost Faris Mumbanya to injury, the striker, who's had a massive impact on them recently. So I thought when he went off, oh, no, they're in massive trouble here. But they were like animals possessed in that first half. And 3-1 lead, and they held on to that lead until the hour mark. And then it was Rosenborg scored 3 goals in the space of 14 minutes. Kasper Tengstedt bagged a brace. Victor Jensen scored in the 76th minute, and it looked like Rosenborg, went 4-3 up, and they had chances to make it 5, but they couldn't hold on. There was an injury time equaliser for Kristiansund, Sam Rogers' own goal. And even after that, I think there was 4 or 5 more minutes of injury time left, and both teams went for it. There was chances at both ends. A draw didn't suit anyone, and it was the sort of match that the full-time whistle, both sets of players were gutted that they didn't win the game. But for Kristiansund, the match kind of summed up the problems that both teams have. Obviously, Kristiansund have got a lot more problems than Rosenborg. They're fighting for their lives. They could go down. But Rosenborg do have defensive issues. Kristiansund have had defensive issues all season. But I've seen enough from them recently that if they need a bit of luck, they need Sandefjord to kind of go winless, really, the rest of the season, or one more win. If they can just have a little bit of luck there, they could scrape into the playoff. And I would actually back them to win the playoff over 2 legs over a team from the Obos.
Just a final question on that, just following on from that. How good is Kasper Tengstedt? He's 22 years old. He's got 10 goals on a 5.29 XG, according to Wyscout, which is unbelievable. Fluke or real deal?
He is the real deal, but there's no doubt these stats it's a real purple patch. It's unsustainable. It's not like Haaland or something like that. I think his best qualities are he's very versatile. He can score a lot of different types of goals. And I think he's a very intelligent, I nearly said cricketer then, footballer, very intelligent footballer who gets into some great positions, and he knows where to be at the right time. And I think he's got additionally excellent composure. I think mentally he's a really strong player. And combine that with reasonably good technique, and he supplied I think 5 assists as well. So it's not just like he's scoring goals. He's a very clever player, and obviously a fantastic signing for Rosenborg, and he gives them a dynamic now. They can outscore anyone. Really, you feel that Rosenborg are capable of beating someone 4-3 potentially, and that's a great asset to have. And it's going to be interesting to see how they develop themselves over the off season. It would do them some good to finish in the top 3. I think they should still do it, but Tengstedt he's the real deal. Though we can't expect this sort of him to sustain these sort of ridiculous stats. But for me, he's the real deal in the Eliteserien.
And if you had to sort of, for those who don't know him, as I said, 22-year-old, he scored 2 against Christensen here. If you had to compare him to maybe like a more well-known striker, what kind of a forward is he?
I think you're looking at someone of, let's say, back in the day, sort of Teddy Sheringham's intelligence. Maybe not to that level, but he doesn't have sort of the rapid pace that someone like an Mbappe would have, or Sheringham was quite slow actually, wasn't he? He's faster than that, but probably Teddy Sheringham is the first name that springs to mind. In sort of it's a very vague comparison. In modern day football, we're thinking of a footballer that's got a really good brain, good positioning, but not necessarily rapid.
Great stuff. And for those who are wondering, Amar Pellegrino is top of the XG in Norway, according to our partners Wyscout, with 12.26 XG and 20 goals. So pretty stunning there. Let's move on. And you've got a couple of talking points on your slate. I mean, obviously we've got Molde Shamrock to talk about. Maybe we should talk about that now before we move on.
I think I've already
Molde.
talked about really Molde Shamrock, so we'll leave it there.
I suppose you've said what you need to say. But did you give a prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to give just a 2-0 win for Molde. I think Shamrock will give it a good go. And, not be easy to beat, but Molde should have enough.
Fantastic. And back onto the battle for 2nd to 5th, as you said here, for the podium and European places. It's very tight at the top, isn't it? But before you answer, I mean, it is tight at the top, isn't it?
It very is. I mean, it's 3 points between 4 teams. And you can make a case for any of these 4 teams to finish in the final 2 European places. 4th place will get Europe if the winner of the Norwegian Cup is one of the top 3, and then the winner of the Norwegian Cup won't be known until the start of next year. So you got to get in that top 3 to guarantee Europe. And Rosenborg, for me, have got a big advantage because they're not in Europe at the moment. So Bodø Glimt, I think we're going to have to really see plenty of strong fight mentally and physically from Bodø Glimt. You would be foolish to back against them being in the top 3. I think they'll ultimately have enough. Lillestrøm, I think they're just probably going to fold and maybe even fade to as low as 5th. And Vålerenga are the wild card in this. They have won 9 of their last 11 games from nowhere. I mean, this team, Fragemo was nearly sacked in the middle of summer, and now he's led this incredible run. But they have some tough fixtures to come, Vålerenga. There's a big match this weekend, actually, Rosenborg, Vålerenga. Then it's Vålerenga, Bodø Glimt. And the last game of the season, they've actually got Molde at home, which is probably a good time to face Molde, isn't it? But, these next 2 games are crucial for Vålerenga, and we're going to see if they are serious or not. I could just see them losing the next 2, knowing them. So if they lost them 2, they suddenly lose momentum.
We do have a listener question, actually, from... I think it's FPL Pasty at FPL Pasty. He says, can Borven catapult Vålerenga into a European qualification spot?
Good question. He could do. As I said, these next 2 games for Vålerenga are away to Rosenborg, then at home to Bodø Glimt. They're season-defining games. If they lose them both, I don't think they're going to be getting in the top 3. If they win them both, hell's bells. They could finish as high as 2nd. So it's time for big players to step up, like Isao Ruiz, if he's fit enough. And Borven, I have noticed a slight improvement gradually since he's got to come to the club. He's been scoring goals recently, and there's no doubt he's a fantastic asset to have. So the answer is he could do, I still don't fully trust Vålerenga. I actually think Rosenborg will win this match this weekend. They're brilliant at home. And I think that sort of loss might just impact Vålerenga too negatively. So I think there's an awful lot riding on this particular fixture. But when push comes to shove, in my experience in recent years covering since the Nordic Football podcast has started, Vålerenga really lack the bottle when it matters the most. And if that trend continues, the logical prediction is they don't find a way into the top three.
Well, we did have a recent episode discussing who were the Spurs of Norway, and he did say Vålerenga was one of the candidates. So we'll see how that one goes. They've got 10 wins from their last 12 games, which is fantastic form. And an interesting stat from our partners Wisecat as well. Vålerenga are the team in the Eliteserien who've had the most touches in the box of any team in the league. 727 touches in the penalty area, 706 for Molde in second place. So, and the only other team with 700 plus is Bodø Glimt. And then Sarpsborg are fourth with 604, so massive difference in terms of the amount of touches in the area. I don't know if that's just because of the main central striker. But yeah, Vålerenga seem to be also they're top of the league for 1v1 dribbling as well, Vålerenga. So clearly got good forward attacking players who can get in the box and dribble. But as you said there, maybe they're not going to be able to sustain it and maybe they might bottle it. So let's see how that big game goes this weekend. On to the relegation battle, Steve, because you talked about Christiansen. And I remember you have been a bit down on this one particular team, and they are looking like they are going down, and that's Jerv.
Yeah, they are, for me, toast. Completely toast now. If we look at the table, they are on 14 points, 9 off the playoff position, and they look gone. And I actually don't want to dig into them too hard because we knew it was going to be a huge task for Jerv this season, considering the resources they had, the squad they had. And they've given it a good go. I actually quite enjoyed how they conducted themselves. And I go back a year ago, I was kind of annoyed that they got promoted, really, against Brann. I felt it would be, I didn't think they would add much to the league. But, thinking about, maybe I've actually kind of got a bit softer in the space of 12 months. But I'm kind of glad they had the opportunity to come up here.
Thank goodness for that.
To come up here and enjoy, Eliteserien football for a season, a bit like sort of maybe how Blackpool did the Premier League all those years ago. So, and, long term, it might even set them up for a sort of a prolonged push, to bounce back in the next couple of years as well. And they might learn some lessons. But I like how they've gone about it. They've had a proper go. They've not just tried to be negative and defensive. And, they've tried to outscore teams and it hasn't really worked. But had they managed to sort of take some chance at the right time or just maybe shut up shop a little bit more, who knows? And yeah, I watched their game against HamKam on Sunday. HamKam with a very much needed victory against them. It started off like a HamKam train, actually. They got themselves 2 goals up and they probably could have had more. And then there was a random goal. You have just scored a long-range, low goal from about 25 yards. Matthias Wickman in the 63rd minute. Alexander Melgavis got a couple of goals for HamKam, defender. And then the last 25 minutes, 30 minutes was very nervous times for HamKam because we know that they lost a lead against Sarpsborg recently. And I think Jerv did have some chances, no doubt about it. It could, if that match had gone 2-2, it wouldn't have shocked me. And I felt it coming towards the end of the game. I thought Jerv might equalise here, I felt HamKam needed a third goal. And again, they should have got a third goal on the break, actually, to make it 3-1. But the keeper made a couple of good saves for Jerv, and they couldn't quite find an equaliser. It was a tense finish. Well done to HamKam, a much-needed victory for them after 3 defeats in a row. But I do think, the Jerv, for them, it's probably the end of the road now.
End of the road for Jerv, and this is their first ever year in Allsvenskan, isn't it, in history, I believe?
Yes.
Sorry, in Eliteserien.
Exactly.
Be pretty tough for them to play in Allsvenskan, but then have to up the whole town and move it about 500 miles. But for Jerv, first ever time, and you've got in that context, you've got to say they've given it good effort as much as they can. 4 wins, still 6 games to go. You never know. They're 9 points off the relegation spot, so it is looking like tough times for them. You've got Christensen, like you said, you think they all escape. That's one of your bold predictions. And you've got Sandefjord currently in the relegation playoff spot. Do you think it's literally just between Sandefjord and HamKam for that final relegation spot? Or do you think Arsenal or Sarpsborg can get something?
Certainly, Arsenal and Sarpsborg could get sucked into it. It all depends how many points Sandefjord are going to pick up, because they've got. I mean, you look at their fixtures now. They've got Bodø Glimt away this weekend, which you've got to think they'll probably lose that, even if Bodø Glimt might not be at their best. Then there's a massive game, Sandefjord against Jerv, and then it's Arsenal against Sandefjord, and then it's Sandefjord against HamKam. So those 3 games, Sandefjord could feasibly win all 3. And then they're suddenly looking at 32 points. So it's in their hands still, but equally they could lose all 3 games. I just don't think Sandefjord have any momentum right now. They're basically over reliant on 2 players. Mohamed Ofkir, who's had a brilliant year, the attacking winger, playmaker, whatever you want to call him. He scored a fantastic goal against Sarpsborg at the weekend. And Alexander Rutevet has had quite a good year up front as well. But defensively, they're a shambles. 55 goals conceded. You cannot rely on them to keep a clean sheet at all. And that's my problem with Sandefjord. I'm not even sure I could trust them to beat Jerv. It's a sort of game that Jerv might just completely have a swing at and score a few goals. So, but yeah, it all depends how Sandefjord do. Other teams above them are just praying that they get no more points, obviously. And but yeah, certainly, HamKam, Arsenal, Sarpsborg could still potentially get sucked into it. I don't think anyone Haugesund above will get sucked into it now, though.
Fair enough. Great stuff. We're about to wrap up part 1 as well on this show, but I'll just run you through in terms of the expected goals against Jerv. By miles the worst, at 64.05 XG. 58 conceded. Sandefjord actually second bottom and Odd third bottom. So maybe that gives you a bit of context. HamKam are actually surprisingly mid-table. Well in mid-table, in fact. 3. They're actually 8th in the league for expected goals against. So it tells you that maybe their problems are at the other end of the field. But yes, that gives you a bit of a breakdown. Now, you've got a very cool question here. And yeah, by the way, Jerv are second bottom for XG in the league this season. Jerv are bottom. And Sandefjord third bottom. So again, a little bit more extra context. Christensen are well clear in that sense. 35.02 XG to their 29 goals scored. Got a nice question here from Max Graves before we wrap up part 1. Steve, I'm going to ask you to put your thinking cap on now. And can you tell us your player of the season in Norway, young player of the season in Norway, and manager of the year in Norway? At Max Graves 91 says, with 6 games to go, who would be your young player of the year, player of the year, and manager of the year in Norway and Sweden? I suppose in a way we don't want to give spoilers away for the end of the season show, but at the same time, do you have, like, say, maybe 2 or 3 candidates for each?
Well, obviously,
considering?
Yeah, it would be foolish not to have Erling Moo on the shortlist, wouldn't it? The way Molde's season has gone.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to...
Let's do shortlist.
Shortlist. Yeah?
Yeah, let's not name your choice, but let's
have a...
let's just do sort of 2 or 3.
I think the shortlist would obviously be Erling Moo.
Outside the box.
Erling Moo.
Outside the box. Just wait before you answer. In terms of managers, outside the box, because obviously you might just name the top 3, but any outliers?
Outside the box, how about Lars-Arne Nielsen at Arsenal? Because I think everyone expected them. There was a lot of predictions for them in the bottom 2, and they're not going to be. They're not going to be in the bottom 2. So I think that's something that's difficult, really, for managers. Oh gosh, I mean, how about Fadugba for turning things around? He was probably 1 match from the sack, and he's kind of rebounded incredibly. I think that deserves a lot of credit. I would love to know exactly how he managed it, really, to turn around such a dire situation.
Call him up, mate. Get him on the show.
Yeah. I mean, they were offering us free tickets, weren't they? So I'd just take a sit.
Oh, yeah, we haven't claimed that yet. We have to claim that.
I'll take a sit-down interview with Dag Ole Fadugba. I imagine that.
We need to claim
Meatman Soccer and Dag Ole Fadugba. I think that would be an interesting mix, wouldn't it?
We need to claim those tickets. I completely forgot about that. For those who don't know and don't follow us on Twitter at Nordic Football, we managed to persuade a couple of listeners of the podcast to support Vålerenga and Bromma Poikina. And as a reward, Vålerenga offered us tickets to the game. But we haven't actually seen them yet or claimed them. So if you're listening to this, Vålerenga, we will be in touch. But so you've got Fadugba, you've got Early move. Who else?
And Lars-Arne Nielsen as an outshot.
Alisson.
Just, I mean, he might.
Okay.
If they go down,
player?
then obviously he won't be on the short list. But
Because he could still go down and perform well if your expectations were low.
yeah.
What about manager of the? Young player of the year.
David Datro Fofana.
No idea.
David Datro Fofana, player of the year and young player of the year. Yeah, you happy with
This
that?
is like the most love-hate relationship I've ever seen.
I'll tell you what, young player of the year. Let's go with. I tell you what, August Mikkelsen. I think at Tromsø is a strong candidate for young player of the year. So I think
Fofana,
Sarri as well at Vålerenga. That has to be considered. So it's actually a really good, strong candidate list for young player of the year in Norway.
And player of the year.
Player of the year, I'm guessing you're looking at someone at Molde, really. Difficult to say. I mean, you could obviously make a case for Fofana, but I really like how the defence has performed this year. Martin Linnes has had a hell of a year for them, the right wing back. Could I have a right wing back as player of the year? I mean, is that even allowed? But it would be a bit left field selection, wouldn't it? A bit.
Who you want?
But yeah, I really like how Martin.
Finalised. It's not finalised.
I think he's had a great year. I think he would definitely be on my shortlist to be player of the year. And obviously Pellegrino with his goals would have to be in the mixer as well.
And okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Those are your three. Hopefully that answers your question, Max Graves. That's going to be it for part one. Actually, no, we got one more question, and we have to ask this because it was the very first question that we got asked on the pod when we put the call out. So it's Barisha at Barisha Show. After the 4-4 draw with Christiansen, do you think Rosenborg have enough to finish second?
Yes, I do think they've got enough to finish second. I think they've got a big advantage not playing in Europe over Bodø Glimt. And if they beat Vålerenga this weekend, which I think they are going to be, then that would put them 5 points clear of Vålerenga with 5 games left. And I think that's enough of a cushion because I don't want to write off Lillestrøm, but I am writing them off. I don't think Lillestrøm are going to be in the top 3. So I just think this is the big game for Rosenborg. Obviously, it completely turns on its head if Vålerenga win this weekend. But yes, I think they can. I think there's a good chance they can still finish second. Yes.
That'll wrap it up for part one. Unless you have any final comment, Steve.
Well, you've got plenty more time to think of your candidates for Player of the Year and stuff now, haven't you? You've kind of thrown that one at me quickly. And
well, part 2 is coming, isn't it? I mean, we'll get to it.
Yeah, I can see your mind ticking over already now. So
you were quick on your feet, so fair play to you.
I was. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Part 1. Part 1's done, and we're gonna have a break now. Join us for part 2, and stay tuned. Welcome back to the Nordic Football Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss and I'm with Jonathan Fadugba, and now it's time to talk about the Swedish Allsvenskan, which has been a very, very interesting league recently. Drop points everywhere. The top 6 are actually separated by just 7 points, which with only 6 games left is kind of quite remarkable, really, Jonathan. And I mean, I seem to ask this question every week. You seem to almost ask this question every week. Does anyone want to win the Allsvenskan gold medal this year?
Great question. It doesn't seem like it. I mean, the answer is probably no, to be honest. Big game, obviously, after the international break was Malmö Hammarby. It ended 0-0 in the top of the table. Sort of near the top of the table clash at Elida Stadium. Controversial, maybe a little bit in terms of Malmö believe they should have had a penalty, which could have maybe decided the match. I know we do have a listener question on that, so you might ask me that in a minute. But I thought that obviously Arga Herod has come in and steadied the ship a little bit from the Andreas Guilson interim spell, which did not go very well. He's kind of tweaked things a little bit. He's played certain players a little bit more. Hugo Larsson, the young midfield 18, he's come in and done quite well. Pavle Vagic has come in, and I think he's looked quite good. He's just signed a new deal until I think 2027. So they've clearly got faith in him. Soren Reeks has been playing sort of as a midfielder as well at certain times. So a few tweaks from Argehira that have done well, but not obviously enough to sort of get them really firing on all cylinders. And for Hammarby, just feels like titles slipping away, really, to be honest. I have been saying this for quite a few weeks now. I think I've said this for probably a good 6 rounds or so. I think that Hammarby have let it slip already. I think it's already gone for them. Just feel like they faded at a wrong time mid-season. They've now not won a game in their last 6. The last 5. The last win was 6 games ago against Degerfors 5-1. 4 draws and 1 defeat. So it really is just too many points dropped for Hammarby. They've had so many opportunities to kind of, sort of get an advantage in the title race, and they're just not claiming them. In fairness to them, they've had a really tough run. They've had ARK away, Wigan away, Malmo away, Djurgården at home, and Norrköping away. So it's not as if it's an easy time of it for Hammarby. And the games are going to start getting a little bit easier. But the question mark will be: is it too late for them, or how can they go on a crazy run last sort of 6 games or so and sort of batter teams and blow them out of the water? That's going to be the question, really. But I think it's probably a little bit too late for them. Malmo are only 2 points behind them now, 7 points off the top of the table. But even for them, I think if Malmo were to win the league from here, it would be a bit of a travesty for the other teams, really, considering how bad they've been. So yeah, I think it was a game where neither team really shone too much. But I think that controversial incident with the handball and the supposed penalty led to a lot of questions about VAR and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that question in a minute. But before we do get going, I will read off the top 6 in terms of positions and points, because it is close. Djurgården and Häcken are on 48 points each. Djurgården ahead only by virtue of goal difference. Hammarby on 43 points. And then we've got 3 teams on 41 points. Malmo, Kalmar, and IK Elfsborg of down in 7th place after winning 4 games in a row. But yeah, we talk about this Malmo Hammarby game, 0-0 draw, and there was some controversy in there. We've got a question from a loyal follower of the podcast, Vassen, and amazingly, it's not actually a question about Kalmar, so fair play. It's this is the question he asked. Might as well ask the question again. What's your opinion of the refereeing standard in Allsvenskan? Seems like more situations than in a long time have been acknowledged in the media. False offside, soft penalties, missing a goal which was 30 centimetres over the line. How the heck did that happen? Actually, where did that happen at? But things like that. What is going on? I mean, this has been a problem in Norway as well for me. There's been some shocking offsides. And I, as you know, hate VAR recently. But so when decisions are so bad, I can see why people actually argue against it. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think Scandinavia is making a good case for VAR, if I'm being honest. Things like goal line technology, you can easily solve that. But I think there's a few things where VAR wouldn't have necessarily solved it. I mean, the penalty, for me, it was a penalty. I think it was, I can't remember who exactly it was, might have been Pinas. Handball in the box. It was, like the striker, I think it was Keith Taylor, was about to shoot. So it's literally pulled it off his sort of half volley. So it felt like a blatant one to me. I can see why the ref might miss it, so it's fair enough, but I think it's a penalty. There's been a lot of strange incidents, I think, this season in terms of, I can recall strange like red cards and second yellow cards and things like that. I mean, I can't remember who it was in the recent Mjällby game, but that, there was one where he got sent off for basically telling someone to get up, which I couldn't believe. Was
it Noah Persson or Ellie or someone like that?
Still can't believe. Yeah, no, I think it was, but I still can't believe that red card. He basically didn't do anything. And yeah, there have been sort of offside decisions and things like that, especially in the big games. I think there has been a few suspect decisions. And listen, the technology's there. I'm not a massive fan of VAR. I think it's overused. Maybe we could introduce like a basketball system, like a challenge system, where you get 3 challenges per match or something like that, and maybe that would solve it, because the biggest gripe is just the constant like going back and missing key incidents and kind of not being able to celebrate goals. And for me, you lose a lot. I guarantee that if VAR comes into Sweden, then next season it'll be or the season after that will be just a lot of complaining about VAR's killing the match, because he wants to be sitting in freezing cold temperature, waiting for a VAR check. So yeah, that's the issue. But I can understand, like, it does feel like this season there's been quite a few sort of questionable decisions from referees. The other interesting thing I've noticed, I mean, this is not anything to do with VAR, but there's been a lot of games getting stopped for sort of off-field incidents like cardiac arrests. The Degerfors Djurgården game was stopped because of a fan, I think, got taken ill. Been quite a lot of worrying scenes like that this season as well. I remember Elfsborg Hacken got called off towards the end of the match because of a similar incident. It was really worrying in the Degerfors game. It just stopped out of the blue. I didn't really like watching it, to be honest. I felt very uncomfortable watching it, to be fair. Nobody really knew what was quite going on. But so I don't know. I mean, that's going off on a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, I think there will probably be growing calls for technology in Scandinavia.
Yeah, like I said, I mentioned the Bodø Glimt offside at the weekend Runar Espejord, but there was an even worse one the previous round, Rosenborg against Lillestrøm. Kasper Tengstedt was a million miles offside, and I mean a million miles. And I have no idea how the linesman didn't see it. Like, genuinely one of the worst I've ever witnessed. And that's a case where VAR definitely would have solved the problem, and nobody would have had a complaint about it. So, but you got to be careful what you wish for, haven't you? And I would categorically say don't go that way, because I mean, just tonight in the Champions League, I watched the Inter Milan Barca game, and there was a shocking decision where VAR didn't give a penalty to Barcelona with a clear handball. So I think it's a can of worms, but you're right. Scandinavia at the moment, there's so many poor decisions that it is making a case for VAR. Can we not just train officials to be better? Put some money into the officials' training and things. I mean, I don't get it, Jonathan. I really don't.
Yeah, this is an interesting point you make there, because that's something that is happening a lot in England as well. In the lower leagues, there's a lot of complaining about referees. I watch a lot of non-league, and there's a lot of complaining about just referees being not up to the standards. And I'm just wondering, like, why isn't there? I mean, there's so much money in football. Why isn't there more investment in kind of actually training referees to a higher standard? So, at a certain point, as the game gets quicker, the referees need to get quicker. And is there actually that level of training? I know at sort of UEFA level there is. I saw a documentary on Clement Turpin, I believe, and the kind of rigorous stuff they have to go through as refs, but they're like the cream of the crop. It doesn't seem that there's a huge amount of kind of training for referees at a lower level, and of course it's a difficult vocation, isn't it? Because when you start at the bottom, there was a really horrific incident in Wigan where a referee got severely beaten by someone at a grassroots game, and he had like broken bones, broken collarbone, broken nose, like shattered ribs, like really, really bad beating just for being a referee. And maybe that's putting people off, and then maybe there's not enough refs. In the context of Scandinavia, I know there's certain referees in Sweden where when you see their name, it's going to be a tricky game. There's a few refs who've got a bit of a reputation. But yeah, I just don't see why we don't get enough more training, really. But yeah, maybe let's move on. I'd be interested to hear what Wasson.
I'll tell you a story, actually, before we move on. A long time ago, I was probably about 16 or 17. A lad in my cricket team who was same age as me, his dad was a referee in football, and his own son in a match actually pushed over a referee. And his dad was so angry that he did it to a fellow official. He grounded him for like 2 years. I'll never forget it. But yeah, it's like, where's that nowadays? I feel like fathers would almost encourage sons to push over a referee. The modern climate we're in, it's awful, isn't it? But they don't get enough respect, to be fair, do they? But yeah, we need to move on. And where are we? Yeah, great chance it was for both Häcken and Djurgården to take advantage, and it's really backfired for both. Certainly in terms of Djurgården, a shock 3-0 defeat at Degerfors. I don't think anyone at all saw this one coming, did they? I mean, remarkable result.
Yeah, and the big story before the game for obviously the Degerfors diff game was Victor Edvardsson going back to his former club. He was terrible and got subbed off at half time. of course, as always, he had something to say about it. Said he was very angry. I think he's, like I've always said every week, pretty much. I think he's done more press conferences and interviews than score goals this season. But he's clearly enjoying the limelight. But yeah, he didn't enjoy the limelight in the actual match itself. And yeah, there was question marks to the joint manager. Thomas Lagerlof was asked about why he took him off so early and that kind of thing. And he said that they couldn't get hold of Degerfors, and they had problems in their defensive side of the game. So they wanted someone who was a little bit more defensive and could do a bit more work rate and bring a bit more energy. So, but yeah, I mean, Degerfors were really good value here. They really took it to Djurgården, who, considering they were top of the league and kind of, I think if they'd won this game, I think they've almost got one hand on the title, to be honest. 3 points clear with sort of 5 games to go, or 6 games to go. I think they would have, I'm not saying they would have gone on to win the league, but I think this would have been huge 3 points, just given that, Häcken, Hammarby and Malmö all dropped points. But they really took a beating that's going to probably worry them, I think, actually, from now to the end of the season. You asked me if Hammarby are out of it, but it's kind of allowed those other teams back into it now. I mean, Malmö may be too far away. You've got Kalmar there in 5th. You've got ARK in 6th, who had a disappointing result again. But really, it's just kept Häcken giving them another lifeline. So, yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone really wants it, as we discussed at the top of the show. Häcken, obviously, they had Jeremiev was suspended for this game. They've now had 4 straight draws. And, we said about Hammarby that the games they've had tough games, but Häcken have had Degerfors, Kalmar, Hammarby and Varberg boys, and they haven't been able to win any of them. So it's really kind of, we really are wondering who wants to win this title. This weekend, we've got Djurgården and Häcken. That's a massive game at the top of the table. And it'll be a fascinating one to watch, actually. Almost can't really predict it in terms of who would win this match. But we will get a lot of answers, I think, in this weekend's game.
Yeah, and do you think Häcken have got an advantage heading into this game? Because, of course, on Thursday night, Conference League, Ghent against Djurgården, and it surely now goes against Diff. 4 more European matches to fit in before the end of the season. They're surely naturally going to drop points on the back of some of those fixtures.
I think they will struggle. Degerfors really gave them a tough game. They have got quite a big squad, but there are a little few off the field things going on as well that we need to bear in mind. For off-field misdemeanors. And I just think that, generally speaking, I think they've had a couple of opportunities that they've not taken. I think this Degerfors game, they might come to regret it. I still think they're a big candidate to win the title. But I think with with Djurgården, they have lost some key players. I think they do miss Isak Heen. And I think the defense, although Danielson's getting a little bit old, he scored a bit of a weird. They were defensively poor.
Heen is a massive miss, isn't he? He's a massive miss.
Yeah, and Danielson's not the player. I don't think Danielson's the player he was, to be honest. I know he's a legend at the club in terms of the title-winning season, I think 2019. But he scored a bizarre own goal, and Bertilsson and Farage got the odds for Degerfors in a 3-0 win. So, yeah, massive game this weekend.
Are you worried about Häcken? Because I'm kind of looking at their results, and they've actually shown a lot of fight and spirit. They've fallen behind in all their last 3 games, but come back to draw in the second half. Obviously, it's not good that they keep conceding the first goal, but at the same time, it's kind of like I almost see positives from these fight backs. They've only lost 2 games of football all season. Look, you can't win a title just by drawing matches all the time. But is it good or bad for Häcken right now?
Well, it's bad. They've drawn 4 games in a row, and I just mentioned the games that they have dropped points in. It's not good enough. This is their once in a lifetime maybe chance to win the title. They've never won the title in their history, and it's unexpected for them to win it. That's the thing. So it's a bit. It's a bit like what you said about Jörv in part 1. You can't really be harsh on them because they're not really equipped to be winning titles. To be honest, they almost shouldn't be in this position. The job Matthijs Høgma's done, Matthijs Høgma's been incredible. But when you get into such a great position, to draw 4 games like that is tough because they've got a tough run. They've got a tough run-in. They've got some difficult ties coming up, and so they've got a much harder run-in than, say, for example, Hammarby. Häcken have actually, funnily enough, performed quite well in some of the bigger games. They've beaten ARK, they've beaten They've beaten some big teams. To be fair to them this season, they've beaten Malmo away. So maybe they suit playing the bigger teams in a way with their counter-attacking style. They have had some injuries as well. Tobias Sana got injured. They've had obviously Benny Traore out for the whole season. Can Yeremieff sustain this kind of incredible goal-scoring form? But they have got to go to EF AIK and Djurgården are their remaining 3 away games. So it will be a huge test for that sort of counter-attacking style that they have. All 3 are winnable, but can they go and get the job done? I don't know. I think no matter how it happens for Häcken, if they get top 3 in Europe, I still think it's been a fantastic season for them. But I think their fans, Hissingen, would kick themselves if they sort of threw it away now. I think they're so close. What a story it will be. This would be like Leicester City almost. Be incredible. So, yeah.
Time for your questions then. Same that you had for me. Flying Dutchman's one first. Any wild predictions for the last stretch of games?
No, I don't think I do have any wild predictions. I'm not really a man for predictions, Steve. That's why I asked you that question. So
I didn't think this one would go down too well with you. I didn't think this one would go down too well. Right. Okay, then. Okay.
If I was going to go for something wild, okay, if I was going to go for something out there, I think this will please Mr. Oscar Holt as well. Let's say Kalmar to finish top 3. That's my wild prediction.
Well, that's going to go down well with certain people, isn't it?
It's not going to happen, but I'm going to.
You know how to appease the fans on this podcast. To be fair, I was looking at them, and they are a solid team. I think they finished the season well. Wouldn't shock me that. I think that's quite a good call. I think that's quite a good call. So
I'll put it this way. Kalmar to finish above one of Malmo and AIK, and if not, to finish top 3, or if not 4th. And I'll go for an easy one that's not really... it's not really wild, but Häcken to finish above EF In the grand scheme of things, that's pretty wild. But,
All right, Mystic Meg. Right.
And I'll go for one more, maybe Varnamo top 10.
Varnamo top 10. Whereabouts are they at the moment? Let me have a look.
10th. But I mean, that would be an incredible achievement because that's like they're like the Jörv of Sweden. So that would
it would be. Yeah, for them to stay there, that would be pretty strong, especially with Norrköping now firing a bit more. So, young player of the year, and managers of the year. Briefly here, I mean, what sort of immediately comes to your mind? A sort of shortlist.
Per-Mathias Hogmo for Häcken. I'm going to say Marty Cifuentes is on the shortlist if he keeps it up. We'll see how it goes. And the Varnamo manager.
Yeah. And young players of the year who's really stood out, would you say? When we say young, I guess sort of 22 and below.
Yeah, you know what I'm like. It could be very young. Kim Helberg is on the shortlist. Martin Fuentes is on the shortlist, and Per-Mathias Hogmo on the shortlist for managers. Young players, I'm going to go. I know I'm going to miss some people here. That's the problem.
It's a tough one. It's always tough, when you put on the spot. There's still 6 games left. You don't have to say anyone.
The problem is most of them have gone, so it's kind of like, well, what most of the good ones are left.
Very good point, actually. In fairness, I'll player of the year then. I mean, I'm guessing Yeremieff's got to be on the list.
Player of the year, Yeremieff, without a doubt.
Is that clear cut? I mean, it's that easy, isn't it? It's
a simple one.
It's such a standout player.
Incredible goal scoring record. I'm gonna put Hugo Larsson in contender for young player of the year for Malmo. I think he's kind of been in and out of the team, but I think he's one of the few remaining who are still there. I think you could give a shout to Bilal Hussein at AIK, but he's actually been a bit hit and miss at times. I think Michael Baidu has been brilliant, but I don't know if he counts as a young player really. I think he's about 22, 23. Might be.
Is he not one? Is he one of those that claims he's younger than he is?
He is on my 10 to watch, so that was a good.
Yeah, that
good
was
shout.
A very good 10 to watch.
Sensational. But I'm gonna have to think about that, to be honest. And player of the year, I'm gonna say Yeremieff I'm going to say Marcus Antonsen has probably been single one of the best players in the league. And I think EF Hussein Karnil for young player of the year would be a contender, just because he's been there the whole season and breaking through at such a young age. I'd probably have him in there as well.
Yeah, well, just a couple of things to tidy up here. Luis Almeida, it's not a question, but Noble mentioned the fantastic job the players and staff are delivering at Varnamo. Given their size and resources, they deserve a lot of credit. I would totally agree with that, Lewis. I actually watched their game against Mjällby, of all things, on Monday evening, and they did it really well. They fell behind early on, and when you fall behind to Mjällby, it's usually a death sentence, isn't it? But I think they had a really good strategy to get back into the game. Won it thanks to a late free cone goal, actually. And he's totally right. I think Varnamo have done a great job. Antonson's had a fantastic season there. And one more question before we sign off here, Jonathan. It's from Estonian Football Podcast. Thank you very much for your question. Why can't Sorga get a chance?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just because Marcus Berg is captain and way better. There's been a few. I don't know. There's been a bit of some weird things going on with him. I think there's been some weird stuff on Twitter. I don't really. I'll be honest. I don't know the full backstory. That question's just come in, so quite hard for me to answer it. But I know there's been a bit of a weird situation there. Seems like he's been a little bit ostracized by Mikastara. I don't know exactly why. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's fitness. Sorgas, I think, put some stuff on Twitter, so I don't really know, to be honest. But yeah, in terms of, I think we've actually got Varnamo a new fan in Luis de Almeida, because I'm pretty sure he listened to the David Salini interview, and ever since then, I'm pretty sure he's been praising, even mimicking, even sort of like trotting out some of David Salini's lines. So I think maybe Luis, are you a possible new fan of Varnamo? Should we arrange a shirt somehow for you or something like that? But Varnamo have been an incredible story this season. One of the stories of the season, without a doubt.
I agree with you. I think everything that he said in that interview has kind of come to pass, because if you remember when you actually did the interview, they were down there, not in the relegation zone, but they weren't far clear of it. But he said they were not going to panic. They were definitely underachieving their XGs at both ends of the field. And I think the results have finally come. And now they're obviously having a very comfortable finish to the year, it looks like. So, fair play to Varnamo. And as for IFK Gothenburg, I think they're one of the most hardest teams to predict in the whole of Europe. I can never, ever get this team right. I don't know which version of IFK is going to turn up. Mikkel Stara 1 minute, I'm thinking maybe he's turned the corner, and the next minute I'm thinking he's useless again. So it's a sort of club where weird things happen anyway, right? And it would just be their sort of year that Hack can go win the title now.
Well, big win for Elfsborg in the derby, so yeah, fair play to Elfsborg. That was a good result for them. Marcus Berg, red card as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it then. That will conclude the episode. Unless you've got anything else to say, Jonathan, about Sweden?
Nope.
Sorted. Okay, mate. Well, thank you very much.
Well, actually, no, I do. No, I do, actually. I do.
Ooh.
That was a bit flippant. I do have something to say.
Last minute.
I'm going to say shout out to Helsingborg and Degerfors for sort of making the relegation race competitive. And I think there is an argument that there's a chance that Varberg and Sirius could get sucked into a relegation battle. I haven't really talked about it, but I do think Degerfors and Helsingborg are looking quite good at the moment. I know they had a defeat to Kalmar, Helsingborg, but in general, they've looked a lot livelier with this new joint managers. And I think Degerfors are also getting a little tune out of their squad with a fantastic win. They've not lost a game now, Degerfors, in the last 5 matches. So the last game they lost was in August. So I think Varberg and Sirius need to look over their shoulders, because they could get sucked into it.
Sirius especially are in a real mess, aren't they? They desperately struggling. Yeah, it's an interesting one. We keep our eye down there at the bottom of the table. So, thanks very much indeed for listening. Do remember to check out the podcast on Twitter at Nordic Footpod, and also our Patreon as well. You can find me at Meatman Soccer on Twitter. Can we find you anywhere on Twitter now, Jonathan?
You won't find me anywhere because I've been locked out of my Twitter, unfortunately. Because apparently I'm
at JF Football when you were allowed back in.
Yeah, I'm underage.
But,
I'm not old enough to be on Twitter, according to their bizarre rules.
I mean, I know your account sometimes does have some childish remarks, but No, I'm joking.
No, I
I'm
got
joking.
locked
But I
up
wish
for age verification or something like that. I don't understand.
I do hope you can get that resolved, because that is a very good account to follow at JF Football. If you're going to follow one account after this, it's JF Football. So, all right. Well, that concludes the episode. Take care, my friend, and take care, everyone. It's thanks very much for listening. See you around very soon, and goodbye.
See you.